G'day folks. This weekend, here in the great city of Sydney, the annual Mardi Gras parade was held. It's usually a feel-good celebration and a sight and sound spectacular. The event this year, though, tinged with sadness because of the shocking murders of two young men by a police officer just days before it started. All three were members of the LGBTQ community. It was a mainly peaceful event until a handful of protesters tried to hijack it. The group held a banner which read, "Queer Solidarity with Palestinian Resistance." 8 people were arrested and charged over the protest, in which flares were lit just metres from where the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns had been marching. Now, this isn't new. This sort of protest has emerged all over the world. But that doesn't mean I'm any closer to understanding it, because on the face of it, it just makes no sense at all. It appears to be a very strange pairing indeed. And the wording is ambiguous, which prompts so many other questions. Is it for oppressed LGBT members in Palestinian territories? And if so, why single Palestine out? Or is it in defence of those in Gaza who are pushing back against an Israeli blockade? If that's the case, and I suspect it is, then aren't the protesters, by championing the resistance, just siding with a terrorist group recognised as such by many governments around the world, including Australia, the US and the UK? Remember, it was a terrorist attack on October 7 that started this war, and by supporting that terror group, the protest is also suggesting Israel doesn't have a right to self-defence. But here's the biggest point, which brings it back to why this movement is not really that well thought out. In Gaza, where this so-called resistance was launched from, same-sex sexual activity is prohibited. It carries with it a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Those protesters must surely know that is a violation of human rights. It goes without saying, really, that this protest and these protesters would not last very long if they did it in Gaza. For some context, as outlined by the Human Dignity Trust, it was a rule inherited from the British and established under the British Mandate Criminal Code of 1936. That mandate ended in 1948, but the law continues to be in operation today. Also, only men are criminalised under this law. And another thing, Israel used to be under that very same law, but it doesn't exist there anymore. As Alexander von Sternberg wrote in Colette recently, Hamas's attitude towards homosexuality comes not from the British, but from their fundamentalist Islamism, just as Britain's formerly homophobic laws were inspired by conservative Christianity. As Hamas strategist Mahmoud al-Zahar told Reuters back in 2010, "You in the West do not live like human beings, you do not even live like animals. You accept homosexuality, and now you criticise us?" is what he asked. But I'm sure the protesters know all of that, and if they do, presumably they're okay with it. There's no doubt Palestinian members of the LGBT community do it tough, as they do across much of the Arab world where gay rights are virtually non-existent. Many are ostracised, face persecution, or even death. Just over a year ago, 25-year-old Ahmed Abu Makia was killed in the West Bank, his head severed. AP reported Makia was a gay man who feared persecution for his sexuality and had even sought asylum in Israel 2 years before his death. A Palestinian acquaintance was arrested. And back to Gaza. According to Human Rights Watch, a 34-year-old Hamas commander, Mahmoud Eshtiwi, was brutally tortured and eventually killed by the organisation in 2016 for allegedly having sex with another man. Eshtiwi was a member of the Qassam Brigades who'd trained fighters for 16 years before he was tortured and executed by his own superiors within Hamas, the very group that leads that so-called resistance. It's all part of a very complex, strict and at times tragic way of life that goes beyond 5 words on a banner 1,000 miles away. Thanks for watching. To support this channel, please like, share and subscribe below. See you next week.